Hey guys, what's up? It's time for another Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTube video, and this time I'm coming at you with a different deck profile. Still Pendulum, right? Still Pendulum, but we're going in a different route this time. We're going to talk about Metalfoes. So, since the new cards came out in Blazing Vortex, I wanted to create a different deck because, let's be honest, the new set didn't do all that much other than give us Pot of Prosperity. But in all intents and purposes, the Metalfoes cards are pretty good. It's just that the nerf to the mechanic and not getting enough, aka Electromite, has kind of put this deck in this sort of limbo state, if you know what I mean. Kind of good, but not good enough to be meta. And I'll show you why. So hopefully you guys are interested in this deck profile. It will be called Scrap Ancient Warrior Metalfoes because we kind of got to get combinations to graveyard. So that's all I'm saying. So yeah, let's get right into it. But before I do, you guys that are not subscribed, that are still watching, please subscribe. Like and comment down below. I don't care what you comment, as long as you comment. Even if you don't like the profile, comment. But without further ado, guys, here we go, boy. Okay, guys, first to start off, we're gonna hit you with the starters. It's a little bit different this time because Metalfoes, they don't really have a generic starter card. It's just a whole bunch of vanilla pendulum monsters with a little splash, a sauce of a little bit of effect monsters and fusion and trap cards. That's about it, right? So their dedicated normal summonable monster doesn't really exist. So we kind of have to compensate for that. And I compensate that for there's a few compensatable cards, but these are the ones that I'm playtesting with at the moment. So the first we're gonna go with Ancient Warrior Masterful Sun Moon. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not sure. You guys can correct me. And then the one guy to go with him, Kong. So this card is actually really good. It's not as good as the next card that I'm gonna show you, but him or Tenki and any Metalfoes card ends you with a double bounce and a counter. So that's actually very, very, very good. In a deck that's super kind of rogue, double bounce is pretty good, and also counter protects you from getting your cards destroyed. This guy, he's just the dude to summon off of him because in another video I'll show you exactly what I mean. He's kind of like the brick pseudo. Whenever he's searched, he summons himself, and then he searches him by sending a card you control or in your hand to the graveyard, which includes combination, synergy. So that's it for these two starters. Also, Sunwoo comes with 3 other starters in the form of Tenki because he's a beast warrior. So moving on to the other starter, we're gonna hit you with the Scrap Recycler. Scrap Recycler is very good. Everybody should know what he does. He has a lot of synergy with machine cards because he sends every single machine cards out of graveyard, right? So him, you can do a lot more other things with him other than just send himself. But in this version, we just send himself. We go into scrap waiver, and yeah. We go into scrap waiver, and we pop 2 cards, and we get a lot of advantage that way. We go into link form. You can do other things with him, like you can send tuners to the graveyard and go for link summon play. That takes a lot more extra space. But for this specific deck profile, I only use him to just get into scrap waiver, and then you're able to get the draw off of his second ability. Not really used that much, but yeah, you will get the draw effect with the combos that I have. So next we have the one brick with him. It's just Crystron Rosenix. You send him, you summon a token, you go into scrap waiver. And then the other brick is Scrap Golem. You summon off of the regular scrap combo, and you get into the third Scrap Recycler, and that's how you get your third draw. That's how you get your draw and your third Recycler in the grave. So that's it for these guys. On to the rest, we have just the Metalfoes cards. So, um, since this is a budget deck profile, guys, we we have to play very cheaply. All of these starters are very cheap, right? Dollars, if that. So we're gonna start off with rare Metalfoes Bismugear, rare Metalfoes Stellan, just 3 of every single Metalfoes basically. 3 Metalfoes Silverid, 3 gold drivers, 3 Vault Flames, and 3 Para Metalfoes Malcaster. So they all have the same effect. If you guys don't know, pop 1 face-up card, set a Metalfoes spell trap from your deck. With the exception of Malcaster and Bismugear, they literally just, whenever it's destroyed, they add a resource back to your hand, in the form of Melcaster being from the extra deck, but you can't activate it in the scale. And Bismugear, at the end phase, you search your deck for another Metalfoes card. So that's it for the Metalfoes, the main deck Metalfoes that have like actual use. And then one of this guy, Metalfoes Vanisher, he's good. It's just that he doesn't have the same effect as the other dudes. He's a level 9, which you can go for VFD with. But um he, on the other hand, his scale is good, which is a 1, right? All of them are 1 and 1 and 8, which comes up later. But the only thing about him is he's hard to summon out because your scales are limited from 1 to 8. And also, he doesn't have the same effects as all the Metalfoes, so he's not as valuable as the other guys. Not that they're valuable at all, because they all do the same effect. They're not really unique, except maybe for their attack stats and their levels. But he's a disruption. So whenever your cards get destroyed by card effect or battle, you can activate your counter in your spell and trap card zone and summon Vanisher out from your deck. And what he does on summon is banish a card from your opponent's graveyard or his field. So it's targeting removal, DD Crow-esque kind of a unique effect, which gives him a lot of utility. Other than that, he's 2900, which is pretty good. And then his other effect comes up so. If a monster you control is destroyed by card effect, except during the damage step, you can add 1 Metalfoes card from your graveyard to your hand, except himself. Not too amazing, because most of the time your Metalfoes cards are going to be in your pendulum scales or in your extra deck. There are you do get some in your graveyard, but for the most part, you don't want him in your scales to begin with. Yeah, that's it for Vanisher. And then on to the spells. So Metalfoes is kind of like a hand combo deck. There's not much space for hand traps. At most, you could probably play 3. Maybe 3 Ash Blossoms, because you can Pendulum Summon it. You could use it as a tuner synchro if you're trying to go for Crystal Needle Fiber. But onto the spell cards. We played 3 Tenkies. Tenki gets us to our Ancient Warriors, which gets us a bounce, which is 2 negates by himself. And then on to the other spell cards, we're gonna play 2 Painful Decisions. We play 2 Painful Decisions because we need more consistency in this deck, and I optimally made this deck for 21 options of Metalfoes cards to draw. So in a 40 card deck, you get like a 97% chance of seeing at least 1 Metalfoes name in your hand, except Vanisher, because we don't want to see him. And hopefully it pairs nice with our Tenkies, our other starter cards. So hopefully we're trying to make this combo, or what we do with this deck, as consistent as possible. 1 Summoner's Art. You can up this to more, but it doesn't really up the consistency that much. Because you're already at like 97%-ish. So if you up the count even more, it's the percentage ups slightly and makes your hands more plausible to get multiple just hands full of Metalfoes cards, which you don't want to see all the time. So that's why we only play 1 Metalfoes sorry, that's why we only play one Summoner's Art. So on to the other spell cards we play. I play two Pot of Desires. Yeah, sometimes this card is very risky because you can banish your Metalfoes Fusion, which is very valuable in this deck. Um, but for the most part, this card you need more consistency in the deck, and Desires also adds more cards in your hand for you to pop and etc. etc. So if you're using this at the end of your combo, it just adds more fuel to your hand. And then on to the rest of the spell cards. I play one Pendulum Paradox. Pendulum Paradox is actually really good in this deck. I want to play more of it, except that it's once per turn, which is super annoying. Just like Pot of Desires, you don't want to see too many of this card because it'll clog up your hands, and you want to see more Pendulum monsters than anything. So this at a 1 is really amazing. So Pendulum Paradox, because there's multiples of different level there's multiple different Metalfoes monsters that have different scales from 1 to 8. So it's only broken up between 1 and 8. So what that means is there's like 4 that has 1 scales, and then 4 that also has 8 scales. So it makes this card very easy in this deck to resolve. Um, then for the other spell cards, move this out the way. We play 3 Metalfoes fusion spells. You can up the count of maybe Metalfoes, full Metalfoes fusion, to not banish it because it's one of your main disruptions, but that's up to you. In this version, I usually try to get these guys out of my deck before I Desires. Desires isn't that important. You could also cut the Desires if you would like, but this is my main lineup. This card is amazing. This card is amazing, and this card is amazing. And depending on your hand and each scenario, they can come up very handy. This guy you're usually going to end with on your end board face down with your combination, and this is your starter. It's your +1. It's pretty nice. And then this is the new spell, which allows you to use Metalfoes monsters from your extra deck, and they go to the graveyard, which is nice. So that's it for the full Metalfoes fusion cards. And then on to the trap cards. We only play 2 trap cards in the form of 2 counters and 2 combinations. You can put combination to 1, up to you, personal preference. But I want to at least have an extra one in my deck just in case for Desires purposes. And this card also is a grindy card. Since there's grindy decks like Eldritch in the format, I feel like counter would be very valuable. And also combination is your main way to combo. This is what you get from your starter cards, that they trigger this combination and you start getting pluses and pluses and pluses. And that's how you end up grinding out your opponent and getting so much advantage to where you make a very good board. So that's it for the main deck. It should be 44 cards, not 40 cards, because Desires, I want to make it less of an impact. And onto the extra deck. So the extra deck, we're going to start with 3 of the best Metalfoes card you can actually play. 3 Mithrilium. So Mithrilium is amazing. So there's not one thing about this card that's bad. It's 26. It's very big. It's very easy to summon too, because any Metalfoes and then a Pendulum monster, which is kind of unique. It also has 2 great effects. It floats, so whenever it's sent to the graveyard, you can summon back a Metalfoes card from your extra deck or your graveyard. It has to be a Pendulum monster though, so you can't summon Diffusion, except the new one that just came out. And also it has a bounce effect. You return 2 Metalfoes cards from your graveyard, and you bounce a card on the field from the field to the hand. So you can recycle your Metalfoes Pendulum scales, or you can get rid of one of your opponent's resources. You can also add back Cycle Reader from your graveyard with Mithrilium, because you can send it to the graveyard with Scrap Recycler and then summon it back with Sheep Cloth, whatever that guy's name is. And you can use Mithrilium to bounce it back to your hand. So that's pretty nifty. and then go into, let's say, an Appaloosa or an Abomination, depending on your preference. Whatever you want to play with that combo. And then for the rest of the fusions, we play one Metalfoes. I'm not even gonna pronounce his name, but that guy, Oracle, maybe, who knows. And then one Alkahest. Alkahest is awesome. We just don't have room for a second one, and also he doesn't go well with Metalfoes combination because combination says you have to summon a a Metalfoes monster from your graveyard that's lower than that fusion monster's level. So nothing can really be lower than level 1. So yeah, so he doesn't really go good with combination. What goes good with combination is him and the Mithrilium, because the Mithrilium can bring back the Alkahest, the Oracle can bring back the Alkahest or the Mithrilium. And then we played one of the new guys, which is Parametalfoes Orthelus. So Orthelus, he's a pop one summon. You shuffle back 2 cards from the extra deck. It's kind of like the opposite of Mithrilium. Mithrilium sends back cards from the graveyard, but Orthelus sends back cards from the extra deck, which is a little problemsome at times because you need those cards to balance them out. But on the other hand, this card is a pendulum monster. So that means in a grindy situation, when your Mithrilium start going to the graveyard, you can keep bringing this back from the extra deck. And it says if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can target. So you can continuously use that pop effect if you have the resources in your extra deck. And also Mithrilium itself shuffles herself back. So that means that you can have infinite amounts of times you can bring back Orthelus from your extra deck based on if you're doing the Mithrilium loop right, shuffling herself back and a fusion spell. So, and having the same resources to keep going into it. So it would be bounce, pop, bounce, pop, bounce, pop, which is nifty and nice, right? And then also, like I said, Mithrilium can bring back your Alkahest, and that causes a problem. So that's it for the fusion lineup. We play 6. You could cut down the Mithriliums, but I wouldn't suggest it because Mithrilium is really important to this deck. It's actually the best card in the deck besides combination. And combination is that good to begin with. So yeah. Then on to the Link monsters. We play one of him. He's a name. He's no Electromite, but he's okay. He's not that bad. I mean, he's no replacement for Electromite at all. The more I play with this deck, the less I see myself using this card, which is kind of sad. Eventually, it could get cut. I don't know why I'm pooping on this card so hard, but it's no Electromite. Enough said about that guy. And then on to the rest of the Link 2s. We play one Cross Sheep. He's really good in this deck because you play a lot of fusions. IP, you can use it and trigger your fusion monsters like your Mithrilium and your Oracle with her effects to link away, and then you will get a double pop with the Abomination if you go into the Abomination with her. And then Squap Ravern. Also, that is it for the Link 2s. Sorry, one more. And then we play one Ancient Warrior Oath. So with just Tenki and any Metalfoes, you can end with this and the other Ancient Warrior monster on board because you're gonna Pendulum summon it, and then a counter. That's just those 2 cards. It's pretty nice. You can also set the combination set of the counter, so whenever you activate this, you can send the combination and get another search. To bounce a card, we'll just end with double bounce and no counter. The only thing about that is it's the counter is very beneficial to have on the board because it makes your opponent play a certain way, because if they're trying to kill the Oath, they also have to worry about the big level 9 dude coming out of the deck that banished something on board as soon as it comes out. So that's only with a 2-card combo. It's pretty nice. Enough said. And then on to the last 4 cards. We play 2 Link Force in Apo and Abomination. Um, these two cards here, these two cards here, are very good in this deck. You can go into Apo very easy, and Abomination is literally screaming pop cards all the time. So you're gonna resolve effects because of Abomination. Abomination was kind of made for this deck. The only problem is it's a Link 4. It's really hard to get into, and to trigger its effect isn't that bad. Um, because you have Oracle, you also have your scale effects. So on your turn, you can pop one of your cards, or let's say a Metalfoes card, and this guy will pop something your opponent controls, or pop another Metalfoes card to bring out another Metalfoes card, like with Thrillium's effect. But this card only downside for this card is that it's a Link 4. Unfortunately, if it was an Electronite, okay, I'm stopped. Electronite, please come back. And then the last two cards are kind of like flex spots. It's up to you based off of what you want to see in your deck, kind of, because it is a budget deck. The first, what I'm playing right now is one Dweller and one Boral Sword Dragon, because this Outer Dragoons, right? The other two level Link 4 monsters don't out Dragoons, and there's not one out in this deck. And then another one is Dweller. You can also play Triple Technical Talons if you own it, but this is budget. And then Forbidden Droplets if you own it, but this is budget. And you can also play Kaijus. Kaijus are nice. There are some level 7 Kaijus that can out your Dragoons. Also, Gamma's another possibility, because I remember there's like 3 flex spots. You can also just put in one driver. Obviously, you can Pendulum summon it out because it's a level 6 and your scales are all 1 to 8. That's another option. But before we end this deck profile, I want to show you other options other than these cards that you can go into if you don't want to use these cards. So 2 flex spots, you can play the Vortex package with Odd Eyes Absolute and Odd Eyes Vortex if you want. There's also another card you can play, which is Gravity Controller with them, which is pretty nice, but I don't see myself using that often, and I don't think this deck really benefits from that combo very well. There's also the VFD, so you can play VFD and the level 9 fusion. I don't own it, I don't think, but I don't play that version either. So another one is you can play the Axis Code, but it's valuable, it's expensive. Or you can play the Underworld Goddess, which also outs the Dragoons. You can link it away, or on your opponent's turn, if they're trying to summon it on you and you have IP, you can use this to go into IP. But the problem with all of these 3 cards right here, they all take effect monsters. Most of the Metalfoes monsters are not effect monsters. They're vanilla Pendulum monsters. But yeah, guys, this is just a budget deck profile. This is version 1 of version. I put this to mean version, but it's version 1. I didn't build a side deck for it yet because it's a testing deck at the moment, and I will post an updated deck profile for it later on in the future if you guys would like that. But that's it for this deck profile, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm out. I'm your boy. Bye.